Would you mind then if we go on to the MDGs? Are you all right? Yes. Okay, we've only got a very short time, but just to walk, because I know that as we look back, remember the looking back? After lunch, we will look at our passion in the present and the forward in hope. Collaboration, networking, advocacy. So, as we look at the Millennium Development Goals, all 8 of them, I'm sure you have all heard about, worked with, read about, some more than others. But I'd like to just share 1 or 2 things. Because, there was a commitment by the member states that by this year, by 2015, all member states have made pledges. And what were some of those pledges? They were very strong pledges. Halve extreme poverty and hunger. Now the interesting thing is that there is some good news. 43 countries with more than 60% of the world's people have already met or are on track to meet the goal of cutting hunger in half by the end of this year. So there's some good news, but there's some buts. 1.2 billion people still live on less than $1.25 a day. So it depends. But there is good news, and we must celebrate the successes. The second commitment was to achieve universal primary education. Very impressive strides have been made in access to primary education. That's an area where there's been good strides, but there are still some, and I'm not sure if this is the most recent figure, 57 million children do not attend school. Some of them have dropped out, and double that number lack basic reading and writing skills. And one of the things that has been a learning, and I share this from our own experience in Mozambique. I will never forget a sister in Mozambique maybe about 10 years ago saying to me, "Sister, should we be supporting the MDGs?" Well, I was so surprised. I said, "Of course." And she said, "Well, why?" She said, "Because our government just wants to get people into school so they get a good report card. And so I have 100 children in my classroom." Now that is one of the learnings. That wasn't just in Mozambique. Some countries felt the political pressure, and what did they do? It was quantity, just put everybody in there and not quality. So this afternoon we'll journey through how that learning is going to be translated, I think, in the next 15 years. Empower women and promote equality, gender equality. Progress has been made in reaching and empowering poor women. One of the countries that has the best record in terms of gender equality, I would give you $10 if you could tell me which one. Kathy, you're disqualified.
Even being disqualified couldn't be answered.
Shall I tell you which one?
Yes.
Rwanda.
Oh.
Rwanda has the greatest percentage of women in parliament of any country in the world, and has made huge strides. But we do have the reality that 2/3 of the world's illiterates are female, are women, and 80% of its refugees, that may be a little out of date, are women and children, but very high percentage. So it's mixed message, as the picture shows us. What about the under 5 mortality rate? Since 1990, the child mortality rate has dropped by 40%, so that's good, but in sub-Saharan Africa, 1 in 9 children still die before the age of 5, so we've got a long way to go. And what we see with the MDGs is their success. The MDGs were the greatest anti-poverty movement in history. And that's something to celebrate. And it's even more to celebrate that we want to continue with it, that the world leaders are committed, and there is a strong commitment to say, we need the post-2015 development agenda, and it needs to be different, and we'll talk about that after lunch. Reduce maternal mortality by 3/4. Again, the reality is the risk of dying in childbirth in the developing world is still high, 1 in 48. But virtually all countries now have safe motherhood programs and are poised for progress. So that's where the UNICEF programs, with NGOs working with them, have done wonders. HIV/AIDS, malaria, TB, reverse the spread. Killer diseases have erased a generation of development gains in some countries. But other countries like Brazil, Senegal, Thailand, Uganda have shown that we can stop HIV in its tracks. And there are success programs because of all the antiretrovirals, the Gavi Fund, the Clinton Initiative. There are many positive things that have worked, have done a lot in this area. A success story, but not across the board. Water, environmental sustainability. More than 2 billion people have gained access to improved water sources since 1990 thanks to the MDGs. That is a success story. But you've still got 780 million that lack access and more than 2 billion who do not have access to basic sanitation. So it's a mixed message. And the last one was the greatest failure, unfortunately. Create global partnership for development with targets for aid, trade, and debt relief. And I'm afraid this is the one that is widely recognized. People have to do better. We have to look at it differently. Because too many developing countries are spending more on servicing debts than on social services. And aid money was going up and then it declined, and especially to the poorest countries. So this is not as successful, but there are success stories even within that. So each year a report has come out. It's like a report card at school. How are we doing? Is it improving? And there is some good news, some not good news. And just to reiterate, I think some of the achievements to date are those. The momentum generated has been wonderful. That is and you've been part of that in your initiatives, in projects in where you've put some resources and have put energy. Increased awareness of development issues and how they relate to our mission and how they relate to human dignity and justice and life. Increased effort by many donors, some successful targeted interventions. So those are good, very good news, and some global targets have been met. I think some of these I've mentioned. That's good news, and so we celebrate that, even as we recognize that there are differences. And I think I'm going to stop there because the time, and we'll pick up this afternoon as we look towards our passion in the present, and I promise you, you're going to get more time to talk this afternoon. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you for your attention.